So this is how I got jumped by 6 Marines, Marine Corp Chronicles, episode 10 by YouTube channel Rapmati. Now before I start off, he hasn't been a victim of assault in the US Marine Corps. He was earning his green belt in the Marine Corp Martial Arts Programme, or MCMAP for short, which one of the events is that he has to put up a fight even when there's 6 people on top of him. Now, anyone who watch MMA can tell you this. Fighting 1v1 is already extremely difficult, right? Now imagine fighting 6 people, right? You're not getting out unscathed. That's the point I'm trying to make here. I mean, anything powerful enough to screw up 6 people is certainly powerful enough to mess you up as well. So, anything you use against those 6 people will probably hurt you way more than you'll hurt the 6 people that's trying to pin you down, alright? Which is why when people say, I can fight 6v1, they're lying to you, alright? Or they're just fighting 6 drunk men who can barely stand on their 2 feet. And that's me being generous for them.
The following is my own true story from my personal experience. It did not speak on behalf of the United States Marine Corps or any other U.S. Marine. This is my own story. First person, Jennifer, I cannot speak on that.
In the Marines, we have what is called the Marine Corp Martial Arts Programme, also called MCMAP, and also what we jokingly refer to as McNinja. Now, within this program, you have different color belts for different levels, and in order to belt up, you have to go through a culminating event. Think of it as a final challenge. In this video, I will be talking about how I got my green belt and specifically how it involved me getting jumped by 6 grown-ass men, which got a little nutty. And so before we get into the story, this is episode 10 of Marine Corps Chronicles, and I just want to give a big thanks to all of you out there for supporting this channel and hitting 60k subs. And since I am now in the double digits for this series, I also want to take a brief moment to answer the question that I get from time to time, which is, should you join the military?
To that question, I would say, are you okay with strict regimentation? Being held to a standard that's different to that of a civilian? Losing some of your rights? Being punished for things that are in the civilian world you wouldn't be punished for example? Are you okay dealing with superiors that act in ways that would cross certain lines? Right? You get treated in ways that is pretty shocking to a civilian, for example. Like, if you're okay with such things, sure, the military is a solid career choice, as in, it's hard to lose your job in the military, unlike some industries out there.
And to that I have to say, I cannot make that decision for you. However, I do suggest doing one thing before you make that decision, which is to read War is a Racket, which is written by one of the most highly decorated Marines of all time, 2-time Medal of Honor recipient, and 34-year veteran, Major General Smedley Butler. And by read, I don't mean sit in a cafe and performative read 2 pages in 2 hours with a matcha next to you. I mean actually read the motherfucking book. And it's not a long or hard read either. It's like 35 pages, which you can easily read in one sitting. Okay.
Sure, it's about 12,000 words in total. It'll take me a while, but then again, I'll probably forget half the things inside the book. But sure, you want to read that book, go ahead.
Okay, I don't want to go that far. I know everyone is at different reading levels and stuff. But anyways, it's seriously worth a read, whether you want to join the military or not. I will link it down below. I make these videos because 1, I enjoy making them, 2, I think many out there enjoy watching them, and 3, this was a chapter of my life, and as I get older, my memories of my time in the Marines will fade, and so it is nice to have my experiences down in video format. And so with that being said, let's get into the story of how I got jumped by 6 men, but first I need to set the scene. There was a time in the Marines where you could be any rank and belt up to any belt as long as you met the requirements of learning a certain set of techniques, a certain amount of physical fitness / sustainment hours, blah blah blah. A good chunk of the time I was in the Marines, the Marine Corps had actually gotten rid of this system. Why? I think they were tired of having lance corporals with black belts mogging the second lieutenants, and so they implemented.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the Marine Corps with a rifle and you end up in an extended fist fight with another soldier on the battlefield, you're probably doing something wrong, right? I think the MCMAP program isn't actually there to teach you how to fight, but rather is there to instill the spirit of the Marine Corps, which coincidentally, martial arts are great at instilling spirit into their participants, for example.
A system where you have to be a certain rank in order to earn a certain belt. For example, as a lance corporal, you could only go up to a green belt, while as a sergeant, you could go up to a black belt. And in order to belt up, you need to be taught by a Marine Corp martial arts instructor, and you could tell who they are because they usually have what is called a tab on their belt. A tan tab makes you a martial arts instructor, meaning that you can belt up other Marines to whatever belt you have currently, while red tabs means that you can be the instructor for the instructor. And you can have up to 6 red tabs, although I've actually never really seen anybody with 6 red tabs before while I was in. I'm pretty sure they kept those Marines locked up in a shipping container to unleash as needed.
Well, I've heard every Marine is first and foremost a rifleman. I've never heard anybody say every Marine is a fist fighter. So I actually believe that, not many people actually have 6 tabs. Because again, if you're in an extended fist fight with an enemy, you screwed up big time. Maybe the commandant of the Marine may have 6 tabs, but beyond that, I don't know how many Marines will work their ass off for 6 tabs just to learn a skill that they hope they'll never have to use on the battlefield, but sure.
I have never been a MCMAP instructor, and I actually left the Marines with the second highest belt as a sergeant, a brown belt. Anyways, these belts were not just eye candy, so you felt like a real motivator. The level of martial arts belt directly contributed to your ability to be promoted. While this is a whole entire topic, just know that belts give you a certain amount of points towards promotions, and promotions are determined on whether or not you meet a cutting score that is released monthly. And so what this means and why I am talking about all this is that not being able to belt up wasn't just some sort of boo-hoo, you don't have eye candy on your waist. It literally sabotaged your chances for promotion. Fast forward to when this story takes place, I was stationed in Myanmar a little bit after the height of COVID, and during this time, I and a group of Marines could not find any martial arts instructors to belt us up. There were plenty of instructors on Myanmar, but they already had classes going on, and because this was around COVID time, classes had to be smaller in size, and so the instructors who could teach classes usually prioritized belting up the guys they were familiar with first in their own sections before taking on other students. I was in communications, specifically as a field radio operator, and there was a sergeant in my section who was a martial arts instructor, but I'm just gonna put it bluntly, dude did not want to belt us up. I and a group of Marines who desperately wanted to belt up would be on our hands and knees begging this guy to belt us up, and he would always have some sort of reason for why he couldn't.
I mean, belting up people is a huge responsibility. You are essentially saying he knows enough hand-to-hand combat. And that's a huge responsibility. You're essentially telling whoever you're belting up, yeah, you know how to fight hand to hand. And let's just say that often the first time, and probably the worst time, they found out how much they're lacking in hand to hand combat is when they're actually in a fist fight with an enemy. In which case, if they're actually not ready for a fist fight, they'll be dead. So belting someone up is actually a huge responsibility. And I don't think there's many people who's ready to take on that kind of responsibility. So
family issues, COVID, administrative stuff he had to take care of, etc, etc. And while I'm not gonna call him a liar, as I'm sure he did have personal stuff going on that he had to take care of, dude edged us so hard by making it sound like next week or next month he would be hosting classes, while when that time did come around, nothing would happen.
Welcome to the military, I guess. Rush to wait to rush. Expecting efficiency.
And getting belted up wasn't some sort of trivial flex, it was actually needed if we wanted the best chance of getting promoted. And so someone higher in the chain of command finally noticed that all the Marines were begging for martial arts instructors, and then we were told that if we wanted to get belted up, MCRD San Diego, yes, the place where recruits go for boot camp, or at least half of recruits go, would be hosting open classes in their dojo for us due to the special circumstances of COVID. Just to be clear, we were not going to get classes side by side with recruits. At MCRD San Diego, there isn't just recruits and drill instructors when it comes to military personnel. There is also permanent personnel there, responsible for administrative duties and other stuff, and so they would also need to get belted up at the dojo, the same place we were about to go. What this also meant is that we were going to get instructed by actual drill instructors, which also means that we were going to get the full Marine Corps.
Why are the rats holding baby oil? Is this some kind of a joke that I don't get? Or is baby oil a good lubricant or something?
Martial arts experience. You see, while there are certain requirements like a list of techniques to learn in order to get your next belt level, every martial arts instructor has their own discretion for how exactly they want to teach. Some instructors just run down the list and check off all the boxes, while others make it a full immersive experience. And I am happy to say that while I perchance almost got my asshole torn in two by attending these MCMAP classes with drill instructors, they were fun as hell. Our MCMAP drill instructors were genuinely great teachers. Every single one of them didn't just do Marine Corp martial arts, they also came from some background of Muay Thai in forms of kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and a combination of all of the above. And
Yeah, those are some vicious martial arts / combat sports, alright? You fight one of them, they'll tire you out, and then kick your ass. Okay, don't ask me how I know.
what made everything really stand out was just how much they emphasized sparring. We would be grappling or striking every day we had class, but more so we would come up with these insanely fun scenarios where it might be a 2v1 but a guy gets a knife, or maybe a 2v1 but the alone guy is a 400-pound mass of muscle. Physical conditioning was also a huge part of our instruction. We would be doing log drills, obstacle courses, various runs and other exercises that made us feel like puking, but the philosophy of this was, according to the words of my drill instructor, you haven't learned how to fight until you can fight tired.
That's actually the part that differentiates between a good fighter and a great fighter. It often comes down to spirit, which is why I'm a huge advocate of martial arts, right? Combat sports is the science, martial arts is the mindset. Alright, combine the two and holy shit, you'll be one hell of a weapon. To be wielded against someone you don't like, so learn both.
My favorite MCMAP activity in general was bayonet drills and sparring. Okay, I know that isn't really relevant in modern day combat, but it is incredibly fun charging down a makeshift trench trying to beat each other up with pugil sticks. Pugil sticks, by the way, were these padded sticks that simulated both the bayonet end and the butt of a rifle, so that you can use both ends of a simulated rifle with a bayonet without actually ripping out someone's windpipe or...
That looks like a lot of fun. Not gonna lie, would like to try that one day. Any takers?
bashing someone's brains in. And the best part about bayonet fighting is that when we did multiple people in teams of 2, you really get a sense of just how chaotic bayonet fighting would have been historically, because one moment you're tunnel visioned fighting the guy in front of you, only for the next moment to get rammed by a bayonet by the guy next to him who finished off the buddy next to you. Anyways, for weeks I attended these classes, logging my hours until finally we were ready for the big day. The day where we would earn our green belts, the culminating event. To earn our belts, it was actually a 2-day event. The first day we all lined up and went into the dojo one by one, where the instructors would name a technique for you to do, and then you would do it on a human dummy to, well, prove you can do it. The first day wasn't really anything crazy and just more technical, as it was for the instructors to make sure you checked off all the boxes so that you can proceed to the next day, where a special event was prepared, and only by the end of this event would you be handed your shiny new belt if you made it. The second day I got to class. It was in the middle of summer and the San Diego sun was high in the sky. The first thing we had to do once we stripped down to our boots and utes was log drills. Log drills are when Marines, usually 5 or 6 if I remember correctly, would line up end to end on a heavy ass log, and then we would be forced to perform various stuff like maneuvers, squats, curls, hip thrusts. Okay, maybe not the last part. But the real test for these logs, since they were heavy as fuck, was to promote teamwork. You see, if you
Teamwork is extremely important in the military context, actually anywhere else. So that's actually a really good team bonding activity. I don't think any HR should do this with their office colleagues, but you know, a rough idea.
Stand still and rest the log on your shoulder, it was definitely heavy and you can feel your shoulders going numb. However, the real challenging part was getting these logs place to place while staying coordinated, because once everyone starts walking, some guys might be out of step while others might be trying to shift weight off their shoulders, and so then suddenly everyone's trying not to face plant and eat dirt or try not to pass out because 2 of the 6 people on the log are pulling their shoulders away from the log because they can feel their own shoulders giving out. Also, the height difference adds to the stress stress because if you're taller than the guys around you, then usually you carried more weight on that log, but also because you can't really make out the legs of the guys in front or behind you, and so people sometimes step on your ankles, and so you're trying your best not to trip over yourself or everyone else. And so the key to doing these log drills is to get a team of people of similar height, and then to have someone, usually in the very far back, call out cadences so that everyone can be in step. And during this event, you can hear people grumbling at each other through gritted teeth and making slick little comments like, stop fucking cheating, get your shoulder back on the log, and many arguments like that would break out. I have no idea how long we actually did this for, as I didn't have a phone or watch on me, but this was just the first event, a warm-up, shall I say. And so the next thing we did was some grappling. We formed a mini circle, and the drill instructors hosed down the area with water before each of us took turns grappling one-on-one again and again. This was to test our individual skills, and as the ground became muddy, it kind of felt like I was fighting in the trenches of World War I, and the instructors would deliberately hose down our faces, so it also felt like I was in a Splash Mountain ride. The water...
That's one good takedown. Now hold him down. Right. Do the armbar from the jiu-jitsu.
mud was also a nice touch because once it got into your eye, you almost had to strictly rely on feeling your opponent. Okay, that sounds a little bit strange, but not in a suspicious way, alright? But it was really definitely something that you don't get to experience every day, and so this section of the challenge wasn't really that bad, unless you hate grappling or you got paired up with Big Bubba. So now we have tested our teamwork, our individual skills in grappling, and so it was time for more physical conditioning so that when we got to the actual final event, we would be exhausted. The instructors took us to the O course, the exact same one that the recruits used in boot camp, where we had to put on flak jackets while coordinating getting jugs full of water to the other side. So we get to the O course and they made us run that shit over and over again until even the most physically fit in the group were exhausted. The flak jackets actually helped a little just because there's a section on the O course where you have to do a mini jump on a log, and sometimes if you jumped and landed awkwardly, it would either knock the wind out of you or tap your balls. And so the flak jacket was like a little extra layer of protection. At this point, maybe an hour and a half had passed by, and so all of us, covered in water and mud and already tired from all the stuff we did, lined up outside the dojo for the final event.
Yep, time for the beatdown.
As we all lined up for this event, nobody actually knew what was about to happen. The main dojo doors, which were these heavy set metal doors that had pretty good sound insulation, had been closed, and we could only briefly make out what was going on inside every time the door cracked open and we could hear music being blasted and people screaming. I was maybe about a third from the back of the line, and so as people were going in, a couple of minutes later you would see the previous people emerge from the back door, and it looked like they had just fought hand-to-hand combat against a bear. One of the guys that had left had the neck hole portion of his green skivvy shirt ripped open where it looked like someone was clinging onto it and then yanked down as hard as humanly possible.
Damn, someone really wanted to mess you up in there, right? And this is the Marines you're talking about, so kind of part of the course, right?
While another guy that left had a noticeable limp that I'm pretty sure wasn't there before, which meant that some freaky ass shit was going down in there. Now, thoughts are racing through my head. What could they possibly be doing in there? Were they gonna oil me up when I get in there? Were they gonna give me a bayonet and have me time travel to Verdun? Or did they have 3 pit bulls and a lion ready to rip my balls off? I started to get a little squirrely as the guys that came out from the back looked like a nightmare, and since they weren't allowed to talk to us, we just had our imaginations for what was about to happen. And finally, my turn was coming up. The guys at the door signaled me to enter, and as they opened the door, light briefly flooded into the room where I could make out some figures lined up on the wrestling mat, and then I stepped into pitch black. Like I'm talking about in the middle of a forest, in the middle of a moonless night dark. I am talking about that time you robbed an ambulance for free tourniquets dark. I went from a bright ass San Diego afternoon to a room with lights that were either dimmed or turned off, which because my eyes weren't dilated yet, they might as well given me blindfolds. The only thing that helped were the dim glow of emergency lights and other electronics along the wall that at least gave me a little indication of where in the room I was. But other than that, I couldn't see shit. And not only that, but the music was blasting and I could not hear anything other than the guy who told me to center myself on the mat before I got in. For this portion of the animation, I'm going to animate these hamsters to where I think everyone was, but I'll let you know at the end how I figured out it was most likely a 1v6. And speaking of a 1v6, the point of this challenge wasn't because they expected you to 1v6 everyone like you're Ip Man. The point of this challenge was to show that you have heart, and that when outnumbered, you would still put up a fight even if you were almost certainly, if not definitely, going to lose.
Well, that's the point of MCMAP. To instill the marine spirit. I mean, you see what I mean by martial arts is the part that instill the spirit into you.
In fact, in a 1v6 scenario around people in your weight class, unless you're really that guy or girl or built like Mike Tyson, there are very few people who could fight off that many people. I don't think that's an unrealistic conclusion to draw, but hey,
I mean, unless you have a very powerful weapon, which, if it's powerful enough to take out 6 people, it's going to take you out as well, right? Unless you have something like a fire extinguisher on hand, or maybe a deodorant and lighter, create an opening and run for your life. It's the best option, right? I don't know which is worse at that point, right? Just create an opening. My advice, if you ever find yourself in a 6v1, just create an opening and you sail the boat the fuck out of there, right? If one of them is getting too close, just, turn around, burn him a bit, then continue running, right? Do not just stay at one place, just keep running, right? 6v1, high chance, one of them just puts a bit of force on you, you're dead, right? However, in this video, sadly, running away isn't an option, so yeah, unless they drag you into a fight, if running away is not an option, then I'm sorry, you have to break their bones here and there.
know if I'm wrong in that assessment. So as I said before, I already noticed the row of people lined up on the mat when light briefly flooded the room, and it doesn't exactly take a genius to figure out that they weren't there to offer me boxes of chocolate. And so as I center myself on the mat, I don't even have time to react or process what was about to happen before I feel a heavy figure slam into my right side, and I immediately feel another figure coming in from my left, and what I assume was trying to do like a double leg takedown or something like that. However, because the first guy tackled me so hard, I feel the guy on my left try but fail to grab my legs before I go flying over his back. I am so glad that guy didn't actually securely grab my legs, because if he did, I'm pretty sure I would have been ripped into 2 pieces.
I mean, in a 6v1, sometimes the chaos they created backfires on them. So, yeah. It's hard to coordinate 6 people to attack 1 person, right? Especially in such a close quarter environment.
The downside was because this guy was essentially a wedge between me and the guy tackling me. I landed extra hard on my back and I got the wind knocked out of me. I don't know if you've ever gotten the wind knocked out of you, but it is definitely a bottom tier experience as far as martial arts goes. When something like that happens, you immediately start gasping for air, sort of like when you're emerging from a swimming pool after holding your breath for as long as you can. And so as I get slammed onto my back, I am clawing for air as I begin to arch my back in order to get the guy who tackled me off of me. And because he went flying over this dude's back with me, he was already kind of half dangling off my body, and so as I arched my back and turned to my stomach, it wasn't that hard. Just as I get to my stomach and begin to push myself up, another body slams into my side and begins driving forward. I only have a brief moment to react and stick out my right arm to prevent myself from getting flipped onto my back, which is what I assumed he was trying to do. I feel my right hand brush against the cold ground that wasn't covered by the wrestling mat and quickly realized that these motherfuckers had launched me nearly out of the map.
Yeah, no matter how big the mat is, you're gonna fly out, right? Welcome to chaos.
This was an actual concern because my brain, believe it or not, is not immune to being smashed into tiles, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but the guy driving me towards the edge of the mat stops what he's doing before I feel another figure start pulling me from the edge of the mat. And by pull, I don't mean he is gently caressing my hand. I mean he is either trying to get me into some kind of rear choke or headlock, and he's yanking me backwards, and so I tuck my chin and I try to turn towards the guy with his hands around my neck and chest. At this point, point, we are a tangle of arms and legs. There had to be at least 3 other guys immediately around me. And here's the thing, there's not enough physical room for 6 people to go after 1 person. I mean, unless you consider dogpiling them to count. And so what it seemed to me like what they were doing was going 2 or 3 at a time and then rotating people out as needed so that there was always fresh bodies trying to grapple with me. I kind of figured out this was the case because
Aren't the instructors tired that they have to do this to multiple Marines every day? Like, okay, I mean, this guy is gonna be exhausted by the end of this whole scenario. Imagine the instructors have to do this multiple times a day.
I would hear a bunch of people breathing heavy around me and slowing down, and in the next moment I would be getting slammed into by someone else and they would have the energy of someone who was relatively fresh. At this point, maybe 20 seconds or so had passed. I say maybe because when you're fighting someone, time moves differently. For all those out there that do martial arts, I'm sure you know what I mean. Fighting for someone for 30 seconds feels like 20 minutes. 5 minutes feels like you're fighting for an eternity. And so I managed to break out of this attempted headlock and I get to my knees, where I am then immediately locked up with another person in front of me and behind me. And the guy in front is pushing as hard as he can while the guy behind me is also pushing as hard as he can. So instead of taking me down, I actually end up getting to my feet because the 2 dudes are unintentionally helping to stabilize my position by pushing on both ends. Just before another person went in for a single leg takedown, or maybe he was going for a double leg takedown. However, because my legs were spread so far apart in order to give myself more stability, he only managed to grab one of my legs. And as I'm trying to get this guy off my feet by attempting to sprawl, although it really wasn't successful because the guy behind me was pushing, the guy behind me lets go. And I'm not sure if he lost his grip or if he was trying to intentionally give the guy doing a single leg more room to maneuver stuff, but whatever. And the guy in front of me is still pushing crazy hard, and so I go flying backwards again, and now the guy in front of me has so much momentum that he actually goes past my head and knees me in the face and loses his grip, and I start to arch my back again trying to get on my stomach while I feel the other guy who was going for my legs scrambling around. I'm not sure what he's actually doing. He isn't able to grab hold of my legs, probably because I'm also flailing around a little bit. And anyways, I get to my stomach and I try to push my way onto my knees. At this point, things become a blur. I was already tired coming in, and now I'm even more exhausted and I still feel like I'm not getting enough air. I also swear that something wet was touching my face, and I assumed it was blood gushing from my nose since I just got smacked in the face. And so my new plan was to not get on my feet because I knew that if I did, someone would inevitably tackle me, and to instead try to lock up the guy in front of me and use him as sort of like a makeshift tripod, so anyone else tackling me would have to technically bring both of us down.
I mean, use your BJJ skills here, right? Stay on the ground.
And before I know it, I feel everyone let go of me while some others then reach over and help me stand up. At this point, my eyes were not adjusted yet to the darkness fully, but I could make out distinct shapes and figures, and they tell me to go to the edge of the mat where a bunch of people pat me on the back and the instructor hands me my green belt. While I am still panting and trying to catch my breath, I thank the instructors for hosting such great classes before they open the back door for me. And in that moment, as the room floods with light, I turn around and count 6 figures standing in a line at the mat waiting for the next person, which I assume was also the amount of people that jumped me. As I got out of the dojo with my shiny new green belt, I also got back to my car and looked at myself in the mirror, and it looked like I had just gotten out of bed and was spinning in a washer. I was soaking wet from the grappling and now had weird scratches and later bruises all over my body. Although I thought I had a bloody nose, I wasn't actually bleeding, which I'm not sure if I should be more concerned or less concerned since I did feel something wet and maybe I grabbed someone's balls. The moral of the story.
Unlikely that you tore someone's pants and then grab his nuts, right? You're more likely to win the lottery and then get struck by lightning twice. Just saying.
Okay, usually I would insert some kind of joke here, but I'll actually take this moment to give my perspective on fighting in general. I am not here claiming to be some sort of badass. There are plenty of people out there that can kick my ass. I do believe that people should strive to be kind, not saying I am, although I want to be. I do lose my mind from time to time too. However, I am a believer that if someone takes your lunch money, you shouldn't just sit there and do nothing, because I guarantee that person is going to come back the next day and do it again.
Yeah, wait for him to come back and then blast him with fire extinguishers or deodorant plus fire plus lighter. You might end up in jail, but in jail you have plenty of time to mess him up with that MCMAP green belt. I'm just whatever. I'm just fucking with you guys. I mean, you can mess him up real good, right? Or you can just like report him to the authorities and hope that they do something about it.
You should stand up for yourself, and even if you get your ass beat, if you have heart, that person will think twice before taking your lunch money again. I am not condoning mindless violence. I am advocating for self-defense. Plenty of times I call myself a dumbass on this channel for doing dumbass shit. Just as if someone else fucks up, they should also be responsible. The same goes for confrontations. I have also been streamed at many times while I was in the Marines, but if I deserved it, then I give a correction noted because I deserve that ass chewing, and sometimes an ass chewing is what a person needs to remember a lesson.
Yeah, fire burns no matter what, right? If words don't work, use fire. Fight fire with fire, I guess. If he wants to get physical with you, I mean, you can either burn him or you can try to take him down hand to hand, right? But I wouldn't suggest trying to take him down. I would suggest just walking away because it's probably not worth it, right? Unless he drags you in and keeps holding you down there, then that's when you have to get a bit more physical, maybe a bit more chemical here and there. Up to you.
Or else words go into one ear and out the other. And so I think the ultimate lesson from this challenge is to have heart, even if you're going to most likely lose. Thank you for watching and making it to the end. I know many of you enjoy story times in general, so I will have more coming from both my civilian and military life alongside my usual gaming and educational content. Please like and subscribe if your heart desires, and I hope to see you in the next video.
Probably one of the best videos I've reacted to. Martial arts. I mean, I highly recommend that everyone participate in it at some point in their life. It's great conditioning. It teaches you how to mess someone up. And more importantly, after seeing how badly you can mess someone up, you'll actually start to pray to God that you'll never have to see the results of your kicks, punches, chokes on anyone, even on your worst enemies, alright? I mean, if you ever find yourself in that situation, I mean, you're gonna have nightmares for the next few days. Right? So, as a martial artist, I would suggest always walking away first. Sometimes turn your head to see what's behind you so that if someone is trying to threaten you, you can get the first move advantage. Remember, fighting in self-defense is like the icing on the cake. Without the cake, that icing is not gonna do anything. Right? Same thing. If you self-defense, the first part of it is not getting into fights. Right? And if you don't know what's going on outside of a fight, forget about having a chance of figuring out what's going on in the chaos of a fight. Right? So that's why I say always just stay out of the chaos. Right? If you can't even stay out of the chaos, forget about knowing what's going on when shit hits the fan. So on that note, I'll see you guys next time Bye.